Alrighty, I am here with Jack, who was eliminated 12th, I believe, in Ascendant Sin City Season 9. And he is the second person of our jury. So I will give the floor to you, Jack. Basically, you could talk about whatever you want regarding the game that you just played, the good, the bad, the ugly, who you hate, who you love, all that good stuff. So I'm going to
Cool.
give it over to you.
Yeah. So I'm out and it sucks. I feel like I'm now starting to get a vibe of like where I kind of fall in these games standard. And this was about on pace. Early jury, but still the jury, but still early jury, which is no fun. It's no fun to be out, but I get why I'm out at this stage. I made a big flashy move with Nolan, and then Nolan and I decided to keep it secret, and other people who were privy to the information chose not to. Rayanne went and told people, and that's fine. I don't blame her. That was a great move for her because it earned her 2 more spots and a bunch of trust and gave her a nice position. Uh, yeah, I had a lot of fun. I don't think I think I still would make the move because I think that was the right move to make when I did. And I think that's kind of what is people are going to be like, what did you remember from this game? What was the moment? I would be like, that move right there and then voting out Andrew. But now I kind of have to deal with like repercussions of like, oh, now like that it's over. I can sit back, talk to people a little bit more after it's all said and done and people are wrapped and be a little bit more upfront about it instead of playing like Jack the sneaky player kind of thing, which I think will be good because I do really like everybody in this cast. I think it was a slam dunk group of folk. Good stuff. Yeah, I kind of knew I was going out yesterday, like all day. Jen and Brian played it up that they were going to do something about it, and then I think they both wrote my name down anyway. So I think they were just kind of playing me, which I get it. You wanna make sure that the guy on the bottom feels like he's got a fighting shot off the bottom, so he doesn't spend all day trying to whip himself into some sort of frenzy or whatnot. So I get it. Not a big deal. I wish I was still in the game, but I'm proud of what I did, and I don't think there's a lot that I would do differently. And that's kind of, if you can't win, you play a game that you're proud of. So I think that's what I did, and I think that covers it on my base thoughts.
Yeah, Jack, you definitely played a game that you should be proud of. A lot of props to you. We were definitely rooting for you. I had vested interest in you in general for one of the games that we were playing behind the scenes in the viewers' lounge.
Was
But
that
no
on your
worries.
fantasy team, or was it like a?
Um, you'll be able to see all that stuff afterwards, but
Oh, of course.
it was a new thing we basically did for the Ascendance Sin City theme. It was basically a betting game where you kind of bet on players round to round.
Oh,
I had a nice stake in you, basically.
nice.
But
Well, I wish I could have made you a little more stake in the game, but that's how it
hey,
goes.
shit happens. But
Yeah, it
anyway,
happens.
um, so the Andrew vote, I think the move, the Nolan, and you kind of collaborated with Nolan on that. I want to go to that quickly and kind of just talk about it. Why did you think a move needed to be made? And then number two, it seemed like you guys had a plan to kind of cover your tracks where you were going to give the story that your vote was stolen. So talk about that and just talk about the general cover up you guys had for it.
So I'll kind of go to the crux of it. I talked with Nolan kind of early on, and Nolan had everything pegged. We had a conversation, I think it was right after the second live night of the live weekend. And we talked on the phone for an hour. And it was like our second call ever. We had one call where we were like, we should probably talk to each other because it's a point now where if you're not talking to somebody, that's a problem. So let's have our first call. So we had our first call and we were both like, this is good. Let's keep doing this, but let's not talk about it. And then our second call was, let's go through every single player in the game and talk about what it is. And I was a little cagey with it at first, and he was like very upfront of like, this is what's going on. It's like Alex and Josh and Drew are a 3, and then you and Andrew are 4 and 5, and Matt and Jen are 6 and 7. I don't think he had it right all the way, but he had it pretty damn close. Alex, Andrew, myself, and Josh were a 4. And I knew that Drew was in the mix at some way, shape, and form. And Matt and Jen made enough sense to me that they were on the outskirts of that in a way that I didn't need to be made privy to. So when I was talking about it with Nolan, it made sense of like, this is something to be aware of. And I'm like, I would be considering some sort of move, because I kind of looked at what was going on in the rounds before. Matt had been saying my name. I heard a little whispers of like, Matt's talking about Jack as a threat going into the live weekend. I heard whispers of that. And like the last 2 votes before that were Andrew versus Ty and Josh versus Tawny. So I was seeing this pattern here of people keep taking shots at my 4. And so far we've been pretty good at evading it and helping each other out. But like, I know that people are going to get better at it. People are catching on faster to it. And people are going to take their turn. They're going to go for Alex next. They went for Alex next. They're going to go for me right after. They went for me right after. And the longer this goes, the better they're going to get at it. And if I'm the last one to get a shot taken at, and it happens to be their 4th and they've practiced 3 times, then it might go out on me. Combine that with, the conversations that I was having. Like, Andrew wasn't really talking to me. I would get like a message or 2 from him at most, mostly about what other people wanted to do. And I was hearing things like starting to percolate, like they were having more conversations about stuff, not even game stuff, just like stuff. And I was hearing about them through group calls. So I felt a little cagey about my position, and in walks Nolan with, here's the story. You're number 5 of the 7. Do you want to do something about it? And I always like to try to do stuff around like 12. I feel like that's a good time to make a claim, because you've let the pregame kind of fade out. All of the people who have been playing, who haven't been playing, have been cleared out, and the people who were playing that stage too hard are out. That's a good chance at like 12, 13, whenever, to do something. And then once you do something, then you can kind of recede a little bit, let the waves do what they want, and create your numbers there. So I was on board. Over the course of the week, the plan evolved. At one point, it was originally started with, let's take a shot at Drew, and then it turned into, let's take a shot at Alec, or let's take a shot at Josh, and then it went back to, let's take a shot at Drew, and then it was, maybe we can get Alex and Josh, and then it turned into, well, maybe Alex will get done here, but like if it goes to Erica, that's not a big deal, and Josh just won immunity on the other side, so like I guess it has to be Andrew, and it kept going. The week of that felt like, this is such a good idea. It's risky if we can pull it off. And we keep getting dealt shitty cards, with Drew winning Josh and Erica winning high roller. That didn't help. The way the teams got divided, that didn't help. Josh winning immunity, that didn't help. We kept getting dealt these cards, and I'm like, this is getting harder and harder, and it's not going to work. I think I said at one point to my production chat, like immediately after teams came in, Nolan sent a message to me that's like, I have 5 crazy ideas. And I like, red flag. Oh no. Like maybe this isn't a horse I wanna stick on. I saw a little bit of, I've played games before where someone's pitching all of this crazy, and I think it's all great. But I know that I can't spend the whole game apologizing. But I decided I wanted to stick it with Nolan. And we pulled off the Andrew thing. And our kind of cover story there, I was kind of adamant that if we were going to pull this off, it needed to be something where my hands weren't dirty, because then our plan was to again make it one more vote, make it through, the double elimination, and then the elimination at 10. And then at 9, we're in a position where we're both kind of secretly in the mix, or we can be publicly in the mix by that point, and there's not much people can do about it. So I was adamant that I needed my hands clean. So the final version that kind of got established was that Ty's steal a vote advantage, which I still don't know if that was real or not, but Ty's steal a vote advantage never got played. It was given to Nolan in secret. Nolan played it on me and stole my gambled vote. I don't get to gamble my vote anymore. It's not read as gambled because it was technically played. Nolan has a cover. It's all kind of clear. so on and so forth. And I think things got muddied there because I was saying Nolan stole my gambled vote, and Nolan was saying I stole Jack's vote, and Brian was saying I used an extra vote. And I don't think we made sure all of our stories connected. We probably should have done a dress rehearsal because I think there was a little bit of, well, these stories don't quite add up, iness to them. And I think that was a red flag. And then Rayanne seeing like I also think the other thing with the Nolan stuff is since I spent the whole week like trying to figure out, am I doing this with Nolan? I need to talk to Nolan. Nolan needs to know what I'm thinking. I need to know what Nolan's thinking. I left Rayanne a little bit dry, where before I was talking to Rayanne every day. We were getting on like a 30-minute call. Even if we were just hanging out and vibing, we were talking to each other every day. And I dropped the ball a little bit on that because I needed to invest time in this Nolan thing. And I think that caused Rayanne to have some doubts. I should have done better at making sure that she felt good about the move. I thought I was giving her what she wanted because she had told me, I don't like my position right now. And I was actively building up this sort of plan that gave her a position where she would be top 3. And then I would decide at 3 whether or not I wanted to go to the end with Nolan or Rayanne if I had that opportunity. But I get that in my head, that was where I was thinking. I did not explain that well enough. And she went and talked to people about it and did what Nolan and I did. Spent the week plotting in secret about, oh no, we can't make them find out that we're doing this thing and blindsiding them. And they did it as successfully as we did. And that happens. You know, you play the game and the game isn't that the slogan of Ascendance? Play the game before the game plays you. I played the game and the game played me right back.
Wow, a season 1 pull to the quote. That's awesome. That is awesome.
That was the season 1 quote. That was on a puzzle I remember seeing, and it's on all the merch.
That was that was like a Hinky vote, and somebody put on that Hinky vote in season 1, play the game before the game plays you, and now it lives on in Ascendance history. And you just said it. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I'm studied. I really studied my Ascendance before I came in. I was reading the wiki like it was a biblical text. I went to all the other forums to try to track down comps. I really tried to be a student of the game before I came in and played it because I felt like that would give me a little bit of an upper hand into, you know, a format like this that's so unique and a bunch of players like this who, you know, once you get to a 9th season, anyone who's coming in is like, I've heard about your game. So people who knew what the game were or had friends who recommended it to them, I knew that I needed to be a student of the game a little bit more if I've only known like 2 or 3 people who have played it ever and they played like old seasons. And I was coming in as like relative beginner to kind of I wouldn't call myself a beginner anymore, but with not as many orgs under my belt as people I know who play these things like all the time.
Who are your 2 friends that had played before, and do you think any of the research that you did prior helped you in any aspect?
I think the research helped me because it did give me a lot of context into this is what it's going to be because this is what it's always going to be. I knew that there were triples. I could tell people I think it's a triple because they do triples a lot. I was able to know what kind of powers are usually out there. I think that influenced me of like somebody last round, Jen came to me and said, they told me they have this power that is all powers played at the elimination are void. And I'm like, they're not going to give out that kind of power. They've never done powers like that before. The most powers they've given is like an idle nullifier. Maybe they've got an idle nullifier and they're trying to stretch the truth. So I think having a little bit of that background research helped. And I actually got recommended to Ascendance by Zach Shelley, who did production on the first game I ever played.
Oh, nice. This actually was the first boot in my season.
I'm a big fan of Tofu. Tofu, I don't know if you're watching this, but if you are, thanks for telling me about this game. I've had an absolute blast with it. And then I think, you know, there's names that are people you know. I played a game with Jabbar. I've played a game with Ali. Names that are like org names.
Right. Cool. So after this blind side of Andrew and kind of, you know, Alex leaves the game, Um, you were you blindsided by the fact that no one was getting eliminated? Did
Yeah,
you have
I was
any?
completely blindsided. Nolan came to me all week and he's like, I think it's me. I think it's me. I'm worried. I wish we were on the same team. And I don't know if I was being naive or had spent a week with Nolan and knew that he was the kind of person who was going to play that kind of paranoid way, where he would come to me and say, I think it's me. I don't think Ray's with us. We need to vote out Ray. And I would be like, you're being paranoid. I'm going to go talk with Ray and make sure that she's cool. And then, of course, Rayanne is going to say, of course I'm cool. Of course I'm cool with you, Jack. We're great. There's no problems here at all. That was after I found out. I think we talked maybe Monday or Tuesday, Rayanne and I, about I want to make sure that you still feel good, that I've been drinking, and not that I've been drinking too much Nolan Kool-Aid. And I think she leaked everything Sunday was the timeline I was told. So a little too late there. But he felt like he was on the chopping block. I felt like we were fine. So when his name came up and it was all in, I was like, uh-oh. But I thought when it happened, that was because Nolan was just being crazy and I was maybe able to get a little more off scot-free. It wasn't until people started shutting me out of the horse race and I got on calls with Josh and Rayanne and Drew after the horse race when it became clear of like, oh, everybody knows everything, and they're not going to let me get past this round unless I do something, unless I manage to like get it out. And if I manage to get it out, then like I'm buying myself a round. And then I was in my head, I was like, I can continue to buy myself rounds. If I can get myself 2 final 7, then at final 7, I can get myself 2 final 6, 2 final 5. And I'm like, that's going to be really hard. But if I do it, then there's no denying that I win. But it was too hard. Couldn't do it. Couldn't get it done.
So talk to me about the horse race. I wasn't there. I didn't watch any of it. People were just like people were shutting you out in terms of like giving you clues, or what was going on.
So anytime I came into a room, the conversation stopped or shifted into anything that wasn't game. At one point, there was a bunch of like side conversations, and I'm like, I just want to like talk like in a smaller group. I'm going to the living room. Follow me, and nobody followed me. I knew that was trouble. I went in a room with a couple of people. Everyone shared their clues, and then Erica left without giving any information. And in later rounds, it became clear that many of the clues that people were giving me were not adding up with each other. So it was all kind of that. And I think, to people's credit, some of that was global strategy. I'm sure that Erica was being cagey with everybody. I'm sure that people were lying about their clues with everybody. But I flat out mentioned, like, it feels like people are shutting me out deliberately. And Rayanne said, that is inaccurate. That's accurate. That's an accurate assessment, or something to that line. So it was a good challenge, and I still managed to get 4th just based on my own intuition and knowing the clue that I had and vague ideas about how people were going to lie about theirs. But 4th isn't enough for 1st, and 1st was what I needed.
Yeah. So it seemed like it was going to be, a do or die challenge to you. Then you would assume.
Yeah, it was do or die, and I couldn't do.
Yeah. So that being said, you get eliminated, and the vote count is, I think, 6-1-1.
Yep, 6-1-1.
Any idea that I know that you ended up voting for Drew? Was there a reason behind that?
I voted for Drew because Drew was the name that I was telling people because I couldn't use the name Josh because Matt was giving Josh immunity, and I thought that I at least had Brian and Jen with me. I assume that the one Brian vote was somebody who was afraid that I had an idol, maybe because I talked up that I had a power with Josh. I talked up that I had a power with Josh. He was upset, and he told me something akin to like, it's a shame, like that, like I feel like you invested a lot of chips with Nolan, and I'm like, well, he gave me a power like on his way out the door, and he's like, he didn't say it out loud. I'm like, he gave it to me behind his back, and like didn't discuss it any further. So I think I instilled a little bit of paranoia in there. So I think maybe Josh voted for Brian in case I had some sort of idol, and was able to knock out all of the votes against me, or force field, or plane ticket, or whatever the Sin City version of the idol is. I know, back to my student of Ascendance, that it's a different name every season. I would love. I imagine after the fact that you're gonna put on the wiki like the name of the immunity idol was like a card peek, and you can like new hand something. No, I don't know. People thought I had an idol, so somebody threw a vote on Brian in case I did, and then it would have been a Brian Drew tie, and it would have probably gone off on Brian.
So I watched your elimination, and prior to voting, you asked Matt, "Are we good?" So talk to me about that. Why did you publicly ask Matt, "Are we good?"
Matt and I had a call yesterday morning. He was my first call of the day on me trying to appeal to safety. We had a long conversation, and he gave a very political answer to "Can you help me out?" which was "I need to go and see," which was sort of a no, but I think he didn't want to say no. And then I asked him, like, he was having dinner with his family. And so I asked him after it was over, I'm like, hey, like, when it's over, you've said you're going to have a little bit of time before, like, let me know. I do want to talk. And he's like, I'll let you know. The next time I talked with him was on the live night. So I did kind of selfishly want to call him out for leaving me on red all day and force him to at least say yes or no on camera in front of everybody, in some political way, shape, or form that he was doing it, for him to at least know, like, that I wasn't gonna let him off the hook. I don't know. It was not me being the savvy game player. It was me being annoyed that he played me like a fiddle all day, and knowing that on my way out the door, I can be a little bit of a squeak on my way.
Who do you feel most betrayed by?
Sorry, somebody just texted me if I'm going to start watching Survivor. Where should I start? So I have to deal with that later. People
I would
reach out to me.
Here's Versuins.
He doesn't want to watch non-HD. Okay, so he's going to start with Gabon. First HD season. I'll deal with that later. Who do I feel the most betrayed by? Rayanne. Rayanne was the one who betrayed me in a way that I did not betray her. Josh, I don't feel betrayed by, because anything he did to me was retaliatory for me deciding that I didn't want to work with him anymore and not tell him. Drew did not betray me. He's out of the game. Erica, I think, tried to come up with an alternative plan, but I kind of put the onus on her to do it. And that I've seen not works when you're on the bottom to tell other people to do your work. But I didn't think it was genuine. Oh, Brian, I feel betrayed by. Brian reiterated, like, you cannot go home. You fuck me over if I go home. If you go home, like, I don't have a chance. This is our only shot. And I'm like, I know, Brian. That's why I'm trying to, like. And then he went and voted for me. So I do feel a little bit betrayed by Brian, because I think he was being. I felt like I kept putting Brian in bad positions and kept trying to apologize to Brian and kept trying to make the situation that Brian put himself in for me to seem beneficial to him. And my reward for helping that was to get continually reminded of how shitty of a situation he was in, and then him flipping. So,
is the way that you feel about the people that you just mentioned, is that going to affect how you vote at all?
No and yes. I think I'm disappointed that they betrayed me, but it's one of those it's one of those game respects game kind of things. Personally, I am upset that they decided that they no longer wanted to work with me. But game respects game, they were right, because I was in a power position that was fairly. I was living in a house of cards, and they all knew what they needed to do to knock my house of cards over, and they chose to do it. So good on them for that. I don't hold any grudges against them. I'm betrayed, obviously. But I know that if the game is over and they apologize, Rayanne went on an apology tour with me after the horse race about, I did this and I probably didn't need to, and I'm sorry. Brian, I assume, will give me something similar to that post-game. I'll accept any apology. It's no big deal. That's how you play the game. I played the same kind of way.
typically when somebody gets eliminated and they're doing their exit interview, they don't know who the person is that gets eliminated after them. You do know that Drew was eliminated after you, but say you didn't know that, who would you have wanted to follow you immediately after the door and why?
I thought it was going to be Brian or Jen or Matt who followed me out the door. And I was kind of thinking that they would take out either Jen or Matt and get a floater. The vote ended up being a tie between Jen and Matt, and the only reason Drew went out is because they took it to rocks. I would not have expected Drew, and I would have expected it's either going to be Jen or Matt. And had I been watching the next time, and it was truly a 5-5 Jen and Matt, I think I flat out mentioned I was live chatting it with Nolan on the jury, and I was like, I tried to warn them, like they were in the middle, they were on the bottom. I tried to warn them they could do something about it, they didn't, and now it's a tie vote between them. And then obviously that seemed to be some sort of extra temperance thing for some sort of rock stunt, and Drew is here, and here we are.
So is that who is the person that you wanted to see leave?
Who I wanted to see leave would probably be Josh. Who I thought I was going to see would have been Jen or Matt.
Okay. Who do you want to win?
Rayanne. Rayanne's playing the best game right now. Rayanne has a incredible resume of I was social, I got pulled in with Jack and Nolan, and then I flipped hard on Jack and Nolan and got them both out next. That's better than I think anybody else has as a story right now. And at the end, it's going to be very hard to vote against, even if for the rest of the game she sits around and does nothing. She gets all her votes wrong. She gets carried to the end. That's very strong gameplay. So I think it's going to be. I think Rayanne is who I want to see win. If not Rayanne, I am impressed with Brian's ability to play me. So I would also be willing to vote for Brian.
Who do you think is going to be able to get to the end?
I had in the back of my head, like, one of Matt or Jen goes in the middle of the jury and the other one makes it to the end. So predictably, I would say Matt makes it to the end and Matt chooses to take Rayanne or Josh. Josh, because he's got a bit of a goat impression, maybe. Rayanne, because he might think that Nolan and I are over here, like, disparaging, and it's not going to work. But I do kind of see a situation where Matt makes it to the end. I don't know how I feel about that. I also feel like the people who make it to the end are the people who you feel the most confused about how you feel about them winning. Because all the people who you think are going to win, or all the people you really, really don't want to win, tend to usually be the ones the cannons end up hitting, and it's whoever else is left. So maybe that'll be it. I hope not, but maybe that'll be it.
What was your favorite moment of the game for you?
I would say, pulling off the Andrew thing was very good. That, I think, is the most notable thing, but it was also scary and hard, and I felt bad for flipping on Andrew when I told him literally 5 minutes into the game that we were never going to write each other's name down. So that, I don't know, was my favorite. I think my favorite moment might have actually been the storytelling competition. I felt nervous about it. My team told me, Jack, don't feel nervous about it. You can be the ringer. We believe in you. And then we slayed. So winning that challenge and being able to say, you believed in me in a way that I couldn't, I was able to set us up with a really good foundation. That was sort of a nice, powerful moment at a time when I was feeling like, I always walk into these games and they say, are you social, are you strategy, or are you competitive, like a comp beast? And I'm like, I always say social. I can strategize a little bit, but I'm not a physical player. And in this game, I think I showed a lot of competition prowess that I didn't necessarily realize that I had. I don't know if that's me underestimating myself or just this not being a very competitive challenge cast. And I do think this was a challenge cast. So being able to have a couple challenge wins under my belt over and over again, that's something I'm going to take out of this game.
If you had the opportunity to play Ascendance again, would you?
Oh, I want to say yes. I think it would. I've been telling myself for a while that like I can't keep playing orgs. I need to go out and be in the outer net. So I would be hard pressed to say no. I would probably say yes, but like it also, you might come in and say, hey, it's time. We would love to have you back, and it's a scheduling conflict. And I can't get a cancellation on it because I'm out of a window.
All right. Well, those are all the questions I have for you, Jack. If you have anything else that you want to add to the end of this exit interview, now is the time to do so.
Nothing from the Viewers Lounge, or were those the Viewers Lounge in there too?
So I mixed a couple Viewers Lounge questions in there. Let me just double check to see if there was anything else for you. Yes, 2 questions from the Viewers Lounge.
Okay.
Most challenging. What was the most challenging part of the format for you?
The most challenging part of the format for me was early on feeling like I needed to keep 18 conversations open at any given time. Later on, I think it was the idea of what can I meddle with? What do I have to meddle with? What shouldn't I be meddling with? Being so open, and especially being in a position where I didn't go to a lot of eliminations until towards the end, it was, I don't have a dog in your fight, but I can maybe help you out with some moves, but I don't need to. I just want to. To what extent can I act on wanting without it being like Jack's pulling everybody's string?
And then the other question is, if you could change anything that would, if you could change anything that you think would have helped you go further, what would you change?
I would have done one of the two things in the week, either the week of planning the Andrew vote or immediately after. In the week, I would have talked more to Rayanne, and I would have made sure that Rayanne felt really good. I would have doubled down on my communication. I would have taken one fewer call a day with Nolan and replaced that with a Rayanne call. I think if Rayanne feels really, 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 really good, she doesn't go and she doesn't tell Drew everything. I also think the other side to that is I wouldn't have kept it a secret that I was working with Nolan. I would have maybe played it differently. I don't think I would have owned up to, yeah, Nolan and I are a duo and we're the best of friends and we're running this game and sucks to suck and then leave the chat cackling. But I do think I would maybe come up with some sort of thing of like, Nolan came to me at the last minute and he said, if you gambled your vote, I'll know because you're the only person who hasn't gambled their vote. If you don't vote for Andrew, I will know and I will blow your game into smithereens. And do it as like, pitch it as a blackmail thing. And that way I'm not lying that I was responsible for the Andrew vote. And people who say, Nolan and Jack had been talking isn't as defamatory, I think, as it would have been with Nolan and I both saying we don't really talk and we don't really trust each other. Because as soon as it was like, oh yeah, they talk all the time, that's a bigger jump in lie than we're talking all the time, but it's like a blackmail thing. I don't know. I also don't know if I would have wanted to do that to Nolan. But he pitched it to me at one idea when we were spitballing. Maybe we would have gone with that. Maybe that would have been interesting. I don't regret any of the decisions I made. I do wish that I was maybe a little bit more nuanced with them.
All right. So those were the Viewers Lounge questions that I didn't ask already.
Cool. Thank you to the viewers for those great questions.
Do you have anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
I really liked this cast. These were really good people. I do think that Rayanne and I could be good friends after this. I think Nolan and I could be really good friends after this. I need to check in with Andrew. I don't know how I do that. I don't know how I reach out and say, hey, Andrew, it's Jack. Remember the time we played a game together and I said we were going to work together and then I voted you out and I went 3 spots later? Funny story about that. Seems to be a pattern, but I think he knows. I think I want to wait until the game is over, and I really do want to just say, like, this is why. He might watch this. The explanation I gave in my thing of I felt like I was on the bottom of our 4, and that people were going to be able to take the best shot at me unless I took a shot back. And then clearly that was the right move because my name came up. And I think he'll maybe be upset with me that I didn't try to have him help me, but I think he will maybe understand from the game perspective. Because I like Andrew. Andrew's a stand-up guy. I still feel bad. I still feel bad that he told me minute 5, I'm never writing your name down and you're never writing down mine. And I wasn't able to hold up that bargain.
Well, that's a postseason.
It's a postseason game. I'll get him on a call. Hey, can I record this call for? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna. It'll be over. It'll be a thing. I'm excited. Eventually, that how the Facebooks go up and they're like, our next person eliminated is Jack, and some stuff about how Jack has played. But eventually, the game played you as well as you were playing the game. But we're so excited to have you in the Ascendance family, and you will crown our winner on finale night. And everyone goes in and comments like, OMG, robbed king kind of stuff. This season's pre-jury has been active, and this season's pre-jury has been critical. They've been critical. And so, I'm expecting that to maybe be a jumping off point where Andrew can write something and I can message him directly and be like, yeah, so let's talk. And let him sort of feel like he can get a dig in at me publicly. Or maybe not. I don't know. I am looking forward to seeing what people say, because I'm always a fan of people bestowing their love on me.
All right, let me stop this.